For folks who are just joining, I was able to text you and be like, can you please come on here? Shit's bananas. We need to talk to somebody who's in the mix and can maybe help us a little bit. Because like you said, it's all the disappearing. It's the witness intimidation tactics. I was reading earlier today, people are sending pizzas to judges' houses who have passed judgments against the Trump administration. And, that's a not so creepy way of saying, I know where you live.
No,
And
it's worse than that. I just want to tell
terrible.
you how scary it is. So, just Judge Esther Solis, a federal judge in New Jersey, who had an assailant go to her house, murder her son, Daniel Anderol, and shoot her husband, who thankfully survived. They are sending those pizzas in the name of her murdered son. The
Oh,
pizza comes from Daniel Anderol.
God.
I mean, this is how dark and scary it is. So they are not only sending a message, we know you where you live, they're invoking the name of a murdered child of a federal judge. So again, these are things in isolation are horrible, horrific, but in the larger context of what's going on in our country, it has got to get more of us to get more active, to get more engaged, to begin doing what's necessary to fight against this climate of darkness, of hate, of bigotry, of a suspension or violation of our core fundamental values.
Talked a little bit about how Stephen Miller's sort of floated oh, maybe we'll suspend habeas corpus. Can you say what exactly would that mean?
So this has been used, it was only a handful of times in all of American history during the Civil War, a suspension of habeas corpus during the internment of Japanese. And so what habeas corpus, it means in Latin, it's something like showing the body. In other words,
Mm,
it is saying that you can just take people off the streets without any kind of due process rights, without any kind of trial, and squirrel them away where you want to put them away. We used the last time it was used for putting prisoners in Guantanamo Bay without a trial. And
mm,
eventually the Supreme Court overruled that. And
mm,
so it's such an extreme suspension of rights. And again, this is why a lot of people, even in our own party, were like, why are you all getting so outraged over Kilmar Abrego Garcia? It is about one individual, but it's more than that. It's about
mm,
the larger due process erosions. And so for Stephen Miller to speak so openly, cavalierly, and
mhm.
casually, saying we are looking at the suspension of habeas corpus, I mean, that is should be so alarming, especially knowing who Stephen Miller is,
Mm.
and knowing what he wants to do to our country. It should set alarms off for everybody. And unless we push back, unless we shine lights on this and expose the true dark underbelly of what their ambitions are, they're going to continue to pick off our fundamental rights as Americans.
So what is happening up there? Is there anything happening in committee that we should know about, or any
Well,
sort of organization coming forward?
so I just want to say again, the only thing necessary for evil to be triumphant is for good people to do nothing. And this is the gravest crisis right now, is that we have a president who is violating our Constitution in an authoritarian manner, but he is not allowing either of the other two co-equal branches of government to check the horrible things he's doing.
Hmm.
When you have a 9-0 Supreme Court that is saying what you did to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, violating his due process, is not right, and you flaunt that decision and do nothing to get that person back,
Hmm.
that is saying I am not subject to the checks and balances of the Article 3 branch of government. And then
Hmm.
we are the Article 1 branch of government. And we have
Hmm.
been so complicit. Congress has just laid down. You would think there would be hearings on tariffs, which are
Hmm.
our power. You would
Hmm.
think that we would be. You think that we would be holding hearings on violations of everything that we think about when it comes to national security with
Mm.
the
The
signal gate,
Qatar plane, even.
Qatar play. No hearings on any of this stuff. When I know in private conversations with a lot of my Republican colleagues that they're outraged by this stuff, but the fact that they're doing nothing, I am sorry. As one of my friends said to me today, the reason why egg prices are so high is because all the chickens are in Congress, and they're just not standing up for what they know is wrong. Congress should be holding hearings. They should be investigating this president's use of power, his abuse of power. They should be investigating these national security issues. They should be investigating the use of tariffs, what's happening to our economy. They should be investigating, to me, some of these fundamentally challenging immigration laws that are being used, but they're not doing any of that. And so it falls upon us as Democrats, all of us, frankly, in Congress, to be thinking of what can we be doing to fight differently in this time, since we
Mm,
can't call hearings. Let's call spotlight hearings. And we've had some of the most moving hearings of my time in the Senate. I still remember the one, and I hope he doesn't mind me calling him out a little bit, with the folks that were on the front lines of fighting infectious diseases through
mm,
USAID. And again, we live in a world where an infectious disease anywhere is a threat to public health everywhere.
mm,
And you had all these groups, Catholic Charities, UNICEF, all these folks that have been doing this work for generations, suddenly having all their funding cut and standing there and telling us stories of the children that will be dying globally
mhm,
because and this we heard it from Bill Gates. He's right. Children will be dying because of America's retrenchment from these areas. And when one of my colleagues just started weeping, he had spent so much of his life in the Senate fighting for America to show up globally in
mhm,
times of crisis, and it's so offensive to him. And some of my Republican colleagues know this. The Chinese are now rushing to fill gaps
mhm,
in global crises to try to say, look at this country. They're not reliable. Their system of government is wrong. Rely on us. And
mm,
and so again, we have to, as Democrats, as I'm saying more and more to my caucus, think of things to do differently. Think of things to do creatively. Continue to put pressure. I'm just back from Tennessee
mm.
doing a town hall in a
How's that
Republican.
going? Those are
Um,
going pretty good.
those are I'm blown away and moved by the activism, even in so-called red states that feel forgotten.
Mhm,
But in every state, there are Congress people that can be held to account. And
mhm,
there's something that Jefferson said that is so compelling. And I really feel like that's where we are right now. Thomas Jefferson said, when a people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the
mm,
government fears the people, there is liberty. Well, right now we have all of these Republican Congress people who don't fear the people. They fear their government, or specifically, they fear Donald Trump. And
mhm,
that is a recipe for tyranny when people are fearing President Trump more. And you're seeing this with
mhm,
law firms that fear him,
mhm,
companies that have mergers that fear him,
mhm,
universities that fear him. I mean, what I'm hearing from some university communities is they're standing up and saying, we can't protect you, so don't post such and such on your social media.
mhm.
This is not America.
Right.
This is a betrayal of our fundamental values as a country, where in all of the places we would want there to be freedom of thought, and I think that should be everywhere. But to have universities telling their students to be careful what you post on social media, or the government will come after you, that is a dystopian reality in which we're living. And so again, it falls onto us as well as to everyone to think, what creatively, how is my moral imagination thinking of creative ways to protest right now? And
Mhm,
this is why, my team and I are throwing things against whiteboards in this very office, thinking, what can we do? A sit-in with
mhm,
Hakeem Jeffries for 12 hours, trying to hold the Senate floor as long as we can. But
mhm,
what else could we be doing? Going to places that they're not used to seeing national Democrats
mhm,
come in and try to rally people and charge them up and let them know they have agency and they have power.
mhm,
Because the last time we faced a moment like this, this is still small potatoes to what Trump 1 did, but in his
mm,
first term, we were able to stop him from doing some of the worst damage, like taking down the Affordable Care Act. And how did we get Susan Collins to change her vote, or Murkowski, or John McCain? How did we achieve
mm,
that? I'd like to think it was the persuasiveness of my speeches on the Senate floor. It wasn't.
mhm,
I would like to say it was my ability to persuade him in private conversations. It wasn't. It was the American people who came down here to the Capitol in numbers I'd never seen before. I just spoke to a group that gets me emotional because they're so courageous. The little lobbyists. These are
mm,
kids with beautiful children, beautiful American children with disabilities. who come to the Capitol in 2017, rolling up in their wheelchairs on senators and congresspeople, and not with hate or meanness, but with just courageous appeals to their conscience, not
Mm,
to cut off resources for them. And so, if those little lobbyists can do it, we can do things more creatively as well within our protest. And so that's what's happening right now. This budget bill is the sword of Damocles hanging over all of us. And
mhm,
again, it's hard. They want to overwhelm us. Yes, there's immigration issues going on. Yes, there are tariffs issues going on. These are
mhm,
worthy of us calling out and talking with clarity. But the issue right now that we need, who's going to be the Susan Collins, Murkowski, and then John McCain of this moment? We need four of them in the House or four of them in the Senate to say, do not cut Medicaid in a nation that has civic virtue. Do
mhm,
not cut to cut food programs for the hungry. Do not cut, and that's food stamps. Do not cut support for children with disabilities. Do not cut support for our seniors in nursing homes. Do not cut
mhm,
the urgent money that we need for over 400 hospitals. It will close if they lose their Medicaid
mhm,
sources in rural areas and urban areas. This is the very moment that they're literally going to be holding hearings this week in the House on how much money to cut from that. And so this is all about our healthcare again. And it's
mhm.
not like the Affordable Care Act, which was 30, 40 million people. This is 70, 80 million people directly, but
The
because of the
most
threat,
vulnerable. Yeah, the
yes,
most vulnerable people. People think that you're exaggerating, though. They think the Democrats are saying, "Oh my gosh, it's always so terrible," and then nothing terrible happens. This is actually terrible. The law is out there. The document was released, 880 billion cut from Medicaid budget. That's the budget. And they're actually trying to go forward with this now. How are they
yes.
gonna do that with a straight face? How are they messaging it to their constituents to try and sneak it past them that we need to shine a light on?
Well, they're gonna try a lot of things that they're gonna call it, "We didn't cut Medicaid, we just demanded, higher work requirements." Well, every independent study shows
Yeah.
that you're not gonna be doing anything but making it harder for people that are eligible to get it because you're creating more layers of bureaucracy. So they're gonna come out
Mhm,
with all of these workarounds that are ultimately gonna shrink the program and affect those millions of people. This is
mhm,
not a drill. This is not an exaggeration. Read their own instructions to the Energy and Commerce Committee, cut 880 billion, and as the independent congressional budget office says, there's only one place to cut that money out of that committee, and that is Medicaid. And
mhm.
again, this may not directly be you, but there are a lot of states that have programs that don't call it Medicaid. They call it, Connecticut
Beaver
Cares.
Care,
Yeah,
Connecticut
Beaver
Care,
Care, things like
Tennessee
that.
Medical, yeah.
Yes. It may not be you directly, but it might be. But remember, close to half of our children are born on Medicaid. Most
Mhm,
seniors that are in nursing homes are on Medicaid. Medicare
mhm,
expansion has supported so many children with disabilities. It is definitely going to affect your community, not to mention the tens of thousands of jobs that will be directly impacted in the medical care world that will be impacted, the community hospitals that could be closed. So this is a five-alarm fire. And it
mhm,
does mandate all of us not just to sit back and be bystanders, but saying, what more can I do for the cause of my country? Because I don't want us to be the nation that suspends habeas corpus. I don't want to be
mhm,
the nation that disappears people off the streets. I don't want to be the nation where academic freedom is undermined. I don't want to be the nation that the only way you could succeed as a business is by paying your tribute to the
mhm,
king, or excuse me, to the
mhm,
president. I
mhm,
don't want to be the nation that takes health care away. We are already the country of all the wealthy nations, Western nations, that has the highest bankruptcy rates because people can't afford their health care. We're
mhm,
already the country that has people who are rushed to the emergency room every day because they cannot afford their prescription drugs. We're already a
mhm,
nation with absurdities like that go on that should already prick the conscience of everybody to say the richest nation on the planet Earth should not have this much child poverty.
mhm,
So this is before Donald Trump, there was an urgency to be pushing to get these things changed and addressed, from paid family leave to
mhm,
the lowering of prescription drug costs. But for now, for us to see this such an extreme, the question is what are we going to do? And I hope to be one of those leaders that show you I'm not just imploring you, I'm going to take more risks. I'm going to travel to more places. I'm going to go more around the clock. But again, it's not us in these positions of power. The power of the people is greater than the people in power if we use that. We are still a democracy. As much as Stephen Miller and others wants to erode our democratic traditions, we are still a democracy. You still have agency and power.
I'm glad to hear it, and I have been really appreciative of the stuff that you've been doing. I mean, I think the sit-in on the Capitol steps was really great way for people to see what we could be doing in our local communities. You know, like Gloria Steinem said to me like a month ago, you need to just start inviting people into your living room. I don't know what else to tell you. There's nowhere else for me to start. You don't have to start at the top. You just need to invite some women from your neighborhood over and start talking about what's going on there. And then that will sort of grow into, okay, well, the school board's election is coming up. And what do we care about this for? And what do we care about that for? And what about mayors? And what about local politics? Because as much as it's like, feels like nothing's going to matter, it's that like starfish method, right? But it matters to the ones that do make it back into the sea.
In Nashville and Memphis, the people who came up to me and told me the incredible things they were doing. One person said we decided that we would do a 25-hour people's
Oh.
filibuster, and they used it as a teach-in. They used it to bring people in their community together, and for that period of time to teach people about what was going on.
Mhm,
I don't know, if you know the story about me, but during another moral moment in our country when people were being lynched, where people were
mhm,
being black churches were being bombed. When the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that bridge named after a grand wizard of the KKK, on that bloody Sunday when those Alabama state troopers beat them back, there was a white guy on a couch in New Jersey watching. And he thought to himself, his first instinct was seeing it on the news, I got to go down to Alabama to help. But then he said, I can't. I just started my law firm. And he thought he couldn't do it. But he then decided something powerful. He said, I'm not going to allow my inability to do everything to undermine my determination to do something. I'm just going to do
mhm.
the best I can with what I have where I am. And he gave 1 hour of pro bono work to a civil rights issue in the state of New Jersey, ended up being the Fair Housing Council. He helped them design a program where they would send black couples out to look at homes. They would be told they were sold. The white couple would come behind them and see if the house was still for sale. And they often exposed the lying, racist real estate steering that was going on at the time. 5 years later, he gets a case file from a family coming up. And again, he's only doing an hour a week more pro bono. And he helps this family move into this home. It was a dramatic thing where even after they exposed it, the real estate agent punched the lawyer in the face. It was just a whole thing. But the
Mm.
family eventually in 1969 moved in. And the family flourished in this great neighborhood with great public schools. And 43 years later, the baby in that family goes on to be the fourth black person ever elected to the United States Senate, me.
Is that you? Yes.
Yes. And so my mom and dad told me, never underestimate your power. Some
Right.
guy who gave 1 hour more in a time of
Mhm.
moral crisis, not only did he make a difference for the challenges of that day, but he set things in motion that gave families like mine opportunities that were once thought impossible. And I think everything I'm doing in the Senate right now is probably linked in love back to the actions of citizens like him that got up off the couch and did something. And so the
The
worst thing
butterfly effect trend on TikTok right here in real
yes.
life.
Yes. I mean, darkness is viral.
Mm.
Meanness is viral, but so is kindness, so is righteousness, so are actions done in a cause greater than yourself. And so be one of those viral agents. You're going to make more of a difference than you realize. Stand up, speak up. This country needs you now. We're at a
Mhm.
crossroads, and the healthcare of millions could be connected to what you do, that one more hour you give this week in protest.
I appreciate it. I know you gotta run to get to a vote. Thank you so much for hopping on and giving us the
V,
time on
thank
such
you. I
short
I I
notice.
love your nightly wrap ups. I look forward to them.
Yeah.
I'm one
Thank
of
you
your
so much. You're a dust bunny. You're in the loop. You
yes, yes. Thank you so much, my friend.
Fantastic. We'll see
All
you
right.
later. Have a good vote. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Cory Booker. We apparently he's a dust bunny, and at Under the Desk News here, we can text his office and he'll make time for us to answer the questions that you guys have. And sometimes when I don't know how to explain it, I feel really grateful to have different connections to at least bring somebody on who can give that first person experience about what's going on up on the Hill and what they're fighting for and inspire us to continue to fight. So Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to post this on TikTok and Instagram for the folks who came late or missed it. It was a great conversation. A lot of work to do, but I think we have the energy to do it, and I think we'll do it together. So, all right, I'll see you on TikTok.